It's time to start. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this session on design teams. I'm Georgiev. I'm with University of Oulu, Finland, and it is my great pleasure to chair this session because I found very interesting interweaving between the different papers here, and really hope to have interesting discussion after the presentations. Let me start with the first presentation, which will be presented by Harshika Singh. And the topic is analyzing the effect of self-efficacy and influencers on design team performance. Harshika is a PhD student at the Department of Mechanical Engineering at Politecnico di Milano. Along with her primary research, which is to understand design team dynamics using computational models, she also worked as a research fellow for a couple of European Union projects. The paper she's presenting was done as a part of exploratory study in a 4-day workshop to gather some insights into her model. Stage is yours. The presentation will be streamed. Just before proceeding to the presentation, on the question answer sessions, you can ask questions into the chat during the presentations. Please indicate which presentation your question is addressing, and you can also ask live questions after the presentations by using the share audio and video button on the top right side of the dark rectangle in the browser. Okay, so please start with the first presentation.
Good afternoon. I am Harshika Singh, and I will be talking about our paper on analyzing the effect of self-efficacy and influencers on design team performance. Recently, a lot of emphasis is being given to study influencers. In social media, they are individuals who have a large number of followers and thus have the capacity to influence others. Similarly, teams engaged in co-design can be viewed as social networks that may harbor influencers. As the capacity to persuade others is not necessarily evenly spread among the team members, there are some individuals who might be regarded more influential than others. These are referred as influencers. Since not many studies could be found that have studied the traits of influencers in design teams, and in order to start our investigation, we chose self-efficacy as one of the characteristics for determining influencing or being influenced behavior, as it is often seen that individuals who are confident in their abilities may drive the team process. We believe that understanding the role of influencers in teams could help us understand the flow of information which dictates the team performance. Thus, the purpose of the study is to explore how self-efficacy and degree of influence in design team could impact individual behavior and team performance. Due to the sparse literature in this context and keeping the aim of study in mind, the following research questions are identified and addressed. The first one is, what is the relationship between individual self-efficacy and influencer status? That is, the degree of influence and number of influencers. Second, how do individual self-efficacy and influencer status affect their behavior during engineering design activities? And the last one is, how do influencer status in teams affect team performance? We presented our findings based on 1 week-long observation of student teams who collaboratively worked on a design task. The data was collected in 2 parts. A pre-course data collection where the participants answered questions related to their self-efficacy. And a post-course data collections had questions to record individual characteristics like individual self-efficacy and influencer status, and individual behavior during idea generation and idea selection. Some of the results of the analyzed data could be seen here in this slide. Figure 1 clearly shows a positive relationship between the degree of influence and the 3 self-concepts. The second figure also shows the correlation matrix. A few things to notice here is that the team members' perceived degree of influence positively correlates with the behavior to appreciate more ideas. And it can also be seen that individuals with higher change in self-efficacy and high degree of influence exerted by influences also produce more ideas. The answers to the 3 research questions could be summarized as follows. First, individuals who are more influenced in the team tend to have high self-efficacy at the end of the course. Individuals with high self-efficacies also experience less change in their self-efficacy than those with lower. Secondly, individuals with high self-efficacy produced more ideas and had less demotivation. The individuals with high degree of influence also appreciated more ideas from the peers during the design activity. Lastly, the degree of influence present in teams impacts team performance, as the above-average teams had high influence in them. However, nothing could be said whether these teams had several members with uniform influence or a few prominent influencers with high degree of influence. To conclude, the paper provides initial steps towards exploring the emergence and impact of influencers in co-design teams. The study aimed at finding the relationship between self-efficacy, influence, and number of influencers, and how they impact individual behavior and performance. Data was collected from the teams of master students during an intensive coursework where they collaboratively worked on a design task. The key insights were obtained, as said in the previous slide, to fulfill the wider purpose of the work, that is, to provide a support to an agent-based model that could help us artificially simulate collaborative team activities. Thank you for your attention. If you have any questions, I will be happy to answer them.
Thank you, and I would like to proceed with the following presenter. The second presentation today will be by Alejandro Lecuna Aguerrevere. He is an innovation and business designer based in Berlin. He is head of design at Takeoff.com and a grocery startup based in Boston, which brings together online ordering technology with robotic product handling. He also co-directs the HPIX, an innovation accelerator for companies at the Hasso-Plattner Institute. He teaches design foundations and methodology at Anhalt University of Applied Sciences in Dessau, Germany. And his presentation today is about the impact of status anonymity on team dynamics in co-creation workshops.
The impact of a status anonymity on team dynamics in co-creation workshops. We introduced status anonymity as a potentially positive constraint in the creative process. Status anonymity is a design intervention where participants in co-creation workshops are asked to hide their professional accomplishment and academic backgrounds from each other while working on a design challenge. Imagine the following situation. You arrive to a co-creation workshop where you and others in your community are invited to redesign the local community park. Everyone is there and everyone is very excited about this new initiative. The workshop begins, everyone gets a couple of minutes to introduce themselves. John, the retired guy, talks about his times back in the days when he was a taxi driver. Lucy, the student, talks about her major in sociology. Michael, the unemployed gentleman, talks about his last job at the gas station. Robert, the full-tenure professor, talks about his many academic degrees and his last research in community building at Oxford. Maria, the mother of three, talks about her unusual skills in pie baking. Laura, the city planner, talks about similar projects that she has conceived. Max, the investor, talks about his amazing management expertise and the 2 tech companies that he is currently directing. And Laura, the politician, talks about her vision for the future. She finishes by emphasizing how important it is to co-create this community park all together as equals. The challenge is then introduced, brainstorm takes place, and ideas are thrown into the table. Robert, the professor, and Max, the investor, immediately take control of the round, delivering monologues on the topic and deciding for which ideas to go for. Laura, the city planner, jumps in and supports their views. Everyone else leans back and listens, and that's how the day continues until the end. Great experience co-designing as equals. This is a common problem in co-creation activities. The perceived difference of status or expertise can cause the development of power structures and hierarchies within teams, which can lead to frictions and poor team dynamics. We set to research how status anonymity, our design intervention, affects team dynamics in face-to-face co-creation workshops. We conducted 2 workshops in Oxford. The participants came from the local community and nearby universities and had different degrees of status between them. 30 participants attended Workshop A. The purpose of this workshop was to observe and corroborate the common problematics that usually arise in teams while co-creating. We found out that participants who had prior knowledge about the challenge took time to share their knowledge with their respective teams. Higher status participants, like academics and experts, guided the teams to what they considered to be the correct solution. Teams that had issues with hierarchies also had difficulties performing and accomplishing the various activities. 32 participants attended the second workshop B. The purpose of this second workshop was to set and observe the effects of status anonymity within diverse teams. Upon arrival at the venue, participants were asked not to reveal information about their status, such as profession, expertise, job title, academic background, or achievements. They were allowed only to tell their first names and talk about their favorite hobbies. We found out that participants followed the rules about status anonymity during the morning, but in the afternoon, when expert knowledge was necessary, people bent or broke the rules. It was observed that team members were actively contributing and no specific individual was dominating the group discussion. Teams worked on an eye-to-eye level. Most participants enjoyed deceiving people. They perceived status anonymity as a game rather than an annoying rule. Experts thought they could talk more openly and step out of the comfort zone of their own discipline. Our design intervention, however, did not work when developing ideas in detail and when expert knowledge was required. We observed the positive effects of status anonymity. It helps to lower or even suspend the perceived status among team members. It increases the team motivation. It increases freedom to speak and positive disposition to listen. It increases the willingness to consider perspective from other team members. Therefore, we suggest using this intervention for the first explorative phases of the design process in co-creation workshops, when different perspectives are being considered and when ideas are being generated. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let me proceed with the next presentation. And this presentation is by Binyang Song. She is a postdoc at Penn State, working on human-computer collaboration and online customer data analysis using deep learning natural language processing techniques. And the topic of the presentation is towards hybrid teams, a platform to understand human-computer collaboration.
Hi, everyone.
Yes.
Hi, everyone. My name is Binyang Song. I'm a postdoc from Penn State. Here I am presenting our work titled Toward Hybrid Teams, a platform to understand human-computer collaboration during the design of complex engineered systems. Human-computer collaboration has been recognized as a promising strategy to tackle increasing complexity. By integrating computational power of computers and common sense and creativity of humans, hybrid collaborative teams are likely to make better use of strengths of both humans and computers in designing complex systems. To achieve effective human-computer hybrid teams, we need to better understand hybrid collaborative teams through design studies. Design research platforms are powerful tools to support various design studies. A variety of design research platforms have been developed, supporting design studies that engage both design individuals and teams, and both human designers and computational design agents. Among them, only a few made potential efforts toward hybrid collaborative teams. Therefore, the available design research platforms in our society were not designed for and cannot well support design studies of human-computer hybrid teams. Several research gaps need to be addressed, including expanding design scope beyond pure configurational or parameter design, enabling hybrid collaborative teams that comprise design agents and human designers, and enabling multiple collaborative design scenarios, such as hybrid teams with different structures, human-only teams, and computer-only teams. According to the research gaps identified from literature review, 4 platform attributes are proposed to make an effective collaborative design research platform, namely to support multi-phase design, to support human-computer hybrid teaming, to support multiple collaborative scenarios, and to support detailed data recording. In this work, the implementation of the 4 attributes is demonstrated through an unmanned aerial vehicle collaborative design platform. Here is a video to show how the platform works. The first is the module for UAV design that allows users to create drones by adding or removing components. The designed drones can be evaluated to assess their performance. There is an embedded design agent for automatically generating drone designs. This is the module for UAV operations. It allows users to build drone fleets and generate and evaluate drone flying routes for delivering parcels. There is also an embedded operations agent that can generate operations plans automatically. This is the module for market targeting. It allows users to compare the submitted operations plans and define the market by selecting target customers. All the generated drawings, plans, and markets can be named and submitted to shared databases. Then I will show you how the proposed platform attributes are implemented in the UAV collaborative design platform. Firstly, this platform consists of 3 coupled modules to enable multi-phase design, including a UAV design module, an operations module, and a business module. These modules are connected by data and information flows between them. Secondly, 2 computational design agents are embedded in the platform to enable hybrid collaborative team construction, including a UAV design agent and an operations agent. Thirdly, the platform has distinct APIs to enable multiple collaborative scenarios, such as human-only team and hybrid team scenarios. Lastly, there is a data logger to support fine-grained data recording of all design actions, design solutions, and team chats. To sum up, we propose 4 attributes of collaborative design research platforms to support design studies on human-computer hybrid teams, and demonstrate how they can be implemented through a UAV collaborative design platform, HyForm. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. And we can proceed to the 4th presentation today by Louise Mueller-Hasse. She holds a Master of Science in Engineering in Industrial Design, a PhD in design-driven innovation, and it is currently affiliated with Department of Architecture, Design and Media Technology at Aalborg University, Denmark. Her present research is concerned with how master creators renew companies through their design DNA. Louise has been visiting researcher at Stanford University's Center for Design Research, and it is published in various design journals, including MIT's Design Issues. The title of the presentation is Design Rationale in Conceptual Design, a longitudinal study of professional design teams. And I would like to use this moment to congratulate the authors of this paper, because they received the reviewer's favorite award, which is recognition for highly rated papers during the review process. Congratulations. And may we proceed with the presentation.
Hello, I'm Louise Müller-Hose, and I'll be the presenter of this paper called Design Rationale in Conceptual Design. I created this paper along with my PhD student, Line Sand Knudsen, and it's part of her PhD thesis that also focuses on design rationale. So what is a design rationale? Well, it's actually the explanation of why a product is like it is. So for instance, in this product over here that was created for Bang & Olufsen, a Danish company, we see that it was created like a designerly chair. That was the ambition. So you can see it here in the way the legs are put to it, the way the sort of the furniture feel in the expression. And it actually was quite important that it was understood as a chair and not as a sculpture, which was sort of how the way that Bang & Olufsen understood their products earlier on. So we're going to talk a little bit about how these design rationales are important. So if we look to where is the design rationale important and where is it developed, it's in the conceptual phases. A design rationale is also important when we talk about wicked problems. So the design rationale is something that we use when we try to explain what the product is and isn't, and when we're trying to get a hold of how we should develop it. So what we tried in this project was actually to say, how does a design rationale develop over time? And what we did find was this model from Schum and Hammond that says that in the beginning you have sort of some undeveloped ideas with sort of some unclear relations. Then there are some sort of partial ideas that are coming together and that are being formed. And in the end, you're actually making connections between these, and that becomes the concept. In this project, we actually tried to get further into what is happening in these different stages. More precisely, we talked about how do the design rationale initiate, how do you mature a design rationale, and how do you finalize it. So what we found was that in the beginning, we see designers, they go very broad and they search for different aspects of the product in order to sort of identify sort of the core challenges of what they're designing. So they may be looking into challenges that is related to technology, business, interactions, experience, expression, and they sort of try to figure out what do we need to solve here in respect to all of these challenges. I have an example here. So this is a technology for putting on a stocking for elderly people. And one of the challenges that they experienced in this sort of prototype here was that the way you interact with it is sort of very gun-like. It's very sort of industrial, and even the expression of it is kind of like a tool or a gun, and that sort of fits very poorly into a home, into a bedroom. And so they realized, okay, maybe this is an area that we should pay certain attention to. They did that in respect to all the other aspects as well. Then going into the next phase here on how they mature it, they are actually, focusing on one of these aspects at the time For instance, in this case, the expression. So really, how do we want this product to look in the future? What kind of experience do we want from it? And we're sort of looking at what sort of future context do we want it to be part of? And as I said before, we wanted it to be part of the the wardrobe environment, the bedroom, and therefore the design rationale was more to design it like a hairdryer, so that it would resemble a hairdryer. That means that solution principles, if you also look at a hairdryer, it means that it would be easy to store, it would be lightweight, and also that it would be sort of this elegant device that is sort of, making you look elegant when you walk out the door. That future identity, this sort of goes into sort of how they finalize the design rationale, that they sort of prioritize. This is actually the core aspect that we will work on here. The functionality of this prototype actually worked, but what they then focused on in the rest of the design process was actually to make this just like a hairdryer, giving it this identity. And they worked with this identity also in the way you interact with it, in the experience, in the way they address technology, etc. So what we found in this study was that, first of all, the study indicates that a design rationale is initiated on the basis of the design team's understanding of the most critical aspect in the existing solution. That could be the interaction, the expression, or the technology. Secondly, we found that design teams, they mature the design rationale by discussing a particular aspect at the time, like here, starting with the experience. And then they sort of try to figure out, what is the core challenge, what is the future context, and what is the solution principles that we're trying to achieve here. And finally, our study indicate that actually the future identity is actually the determining factor that ties together the whole concept and sort of build the design rationale and sort of create a direction for the team's understanding of what they're doing. Why is the design rationale so interesting? Well, it actually gives us an idea of having a sort of a coherent solution when we understand why the design is designed the way it is. That could be interesting for a handover situation. Maybe you have created the concept and you're handing it over to somebody else to take over, maybe an engineer. Then it's pretty important that you understand that it has to be just like a hairdryer, that there shouldn't be any solutions in the details that could make it look more like a gun again. That is not what we want. We're actually trying to make it like a hairdryer. So also it becomes relevant in the decision making, ensuring sort of coherency in the later process. And for whom is this relevant? Well, it's relevant to design teams, to design managers, and to decision makers. Okay, that's all about this paper. Thank you for watching.
Thank you. And now it's time for discussion session. All four presenters will be available to answer your questions. Please use screen sharing on the top right, not screen sharing, but sharing audio and video on the top right side if you want to ask question. Alternatively, you can type the question into the chat. If we don't have yet questions, maybe I can try to ask first presenter, Harshika.
Hi, sure.
Yes. Actually, I have several questions regarding this study. My first question is about the emergence in terms of probably in terms of time or timing of the emergence of influencers. Do you have any particular observations regarding this? How this might influence the overall outcome or performance? Also?
Okay, thank you for the question. Here, we started with our common observation, which we see in teams that usually some people are more dominating in the team than the others. And we also see that usually people who are dominating are more confident. So based on these two common observations, we decided to test self-efficacy as one of the traits for the influences which might influence the team process. This is how we chose the confidence level of individuals as the emerging factors of influencers. That answer your question?
Thank you. So we have a question in the chat, maybe the question is to Binyang. What phase of the collaboration or design process is your research focused on?
Well,
sorry, it was the question was focused to Binyang. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you for the question. And actually, in our study with our proposed design research platform, the design process or the collaboration focus on the ideation, configuration, and modeling phase of the design. Because we incorporate the design, the configurational design of the drawings, and the path planning for the drawing fleet, and the business, the market targeting for the drawing operation company. But all these design focus on configuration and the modeling phase, but we try to incorporate the economic and market information into the process to provide context concerning more aspects of practical process.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And next question is to Luis Hasse. Did you consider or measured if the design rationale is also relevant for the end consumer?
Yes, hi. Thank you for that question. We haven't in this study measured it, but we have another study right now where we can see that actually the design different DNAs are actually competitive advantages. So it does have sometimes influence on the end consumer, whether they actually perceive them fully. I am not always aware of, but I know that from some of the other research that we, for instance, did with Bang & Olufsen and with Lego, we know that the customers do consider some of these rationales to be very relevant for how they perceive the product or why they like the product, but perhaps not the full concept or the full rationale, but those bits and parts that differentiate it from other products. They are the relevant ones. Yeah.
Okay. So that was a question by Alejandro Lecuna, and next question by John Gero is for Harshika. Prior research has indicated that a person with authority changes the behavior of others. Does your research find support for this?
This particular study, we saw that yes, degree of influence do affect the amount of ideas individuals are producing. They also affect how they are selecting ideas. But in our like one of the studies which we're doing right now, we did find that this degree of influence or the number of influences do affect how an individual is agreeing with the other person with on his or her proposed concept. So degree of influence does affect idea selection and decision making. If does that answer?
Yes. Okay, thank you. And next question by Alex Kimber to Alejandro. Have you made any observations or have a hypothesis regarding status anonymity in co-design among professionals in design teams? Does status anonymity improve co-design at a peer-to-peer level?
Originally, the paper, we did it thinking on situations where there's a lot of different statuses among the team, and that doesn't happen so often inside companies. I mean, everybody's more or less knows the objective of the company or the values or the vision, mission, etc. But the paper was in the context of like community development, social engagement, where you need to come up with creative ideas and you don't want that somebody hacks the meeting. But I could imagine that inside companies, in my experience, that could be this difference of statuses that you definitely have in a company, you know, like the boss or maybe middle-level manager or maybe some intern. They have different statuses that could be overcome through culture management, you know, and through values management inside the company. That would be a suggestion, no? And also depending on the type of people that you hire and engage with in the company. That would be my advice. Yeah. I don't know if that answers your question, but try my best.
Another question to Alejandro by Georgia van der Zonde. You studied co-design situations with strangers interacting, but how do you imagine your results could be applied in the workplace where people are more likely to know teammates' prior experience?
Oh, I think I was answering the other question before. Okay. This is terrible. My last answer was about I read it. Mm-hmm. And I answered, I answered this one that you said right now. Mm-hmm. So let me answer, do you have any data showing to which extent the facilitator's role in the co-creation process may influence the team's equality? Mm-hmm. Actually, that is a really good question, but I don't have it. Would be really interesting, and that's that would be a very interesting idea for a future paper. So thank you very much. And sorry that I mixed the questions. Yeah.
Okay. So there is addition from Gaetano Cascini, who is co-authoring the paper with Harshika. All participants had the same degree of authority in idea generation, while differences appear in idea selection, and their indeed authority plays a significant role. Okay, any more questions? Maybe I can try to direct question to Harshika and Alejandro. Can you summarize the main factors, or do you think the main factors in your studies are, for example, time, emergence, and type of role, maybe? That's at least how I perceived it, but is this correct observation, or would you have more different factors to summarize in your studies, from your studies? Maybe first Harshika?
Okay, so the time of the study was, the data was collected 2 times, so at the beginning and at the end of the workshop. But ideally, I would say at least the analysis should be done at least 3 times, in the beginning, during the process, and at the end, to capture like what happens in between. Then to answer your second question about the emergence, is it related to emergence of influences?
Yes, I was thinking that this is a kind of factor, how and when this emergence occurs.
In terms of the study, we noted the emergence at the end of the workshop, because at the beginning we were just collecting what is the self-efficacy level. So after they are familiar with their participants, you tend to see who is more influencing. So the emergence was captured at the end of the study. But again, like I said, it would be useful to collect in between, like during the process, to see like how during and end related to emergence of influences is changed. So there was time, emergence, and then I'm sorry.
Role, actually, the type of role, actually, because there is difference between, let's say, the case of Alejandro's studies and your study. For example, status, influencers, and so maybe that the exact role it plays is.
The role or the places where we investigated might be affected by influences was during idea generation, especially related to the number of ideas generated, how it affected idea selection, and eventually the team performance. The exact role of influences is still to be investigated. Like, we still don't know how much do they influence at different parts of idea generation, or at different, like whether they are influencing more in or manipulating in decision making, or whether they are manipulating while generating ideas. Our studies in general showed that they might affect in a number of ideas or quantity of ideas, but the minor details of like quality of ideas or the exploration of solutions is still to be done.
Maybe Alejandro? Microphone is muted, I think.
Repeat the main 3
yes,
factors.
so I was thinking time is important factor, emergence, how the status emerges, maybe, and the actual role.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So for me, like I described on the paper, the time was key on when status seems to play a role. It seems it's mostly on the early in the morning when people appear and they get to know each other. Suddenly is when statuses become very obvious, and when people sort of back off from each other. So and where influencers, if I might borrow the term, jump in and define how the day is going to go. But if this is addressed, the day tends to go a little bit smoother or more creative. That's what I observe and what I reported in the paper. How does it arises? It's very interesting. I mean, it arises in the terms of overpowering conversations, by not finding the end of a phrase. No, like that happens very often. So like people start talking and then they consume the whole time for the group. And the people that did it, or that tend to be these overly influencers, I like the term influencer. They tend to be in the context where I run those workshops, which was in Oxford, were mostly professors, and professors or business owners that started, basically taking control of workshops and actually driving them in the completely opposite direction of where we wanted those workshops to go. But again, to go to the beginning, if those things are addressed somehow through status anonymity, what we discover is that people thought it was a game, and that was really interesting for everybody. You know, when they discover, okay, it's not a rule, it's a game, and that somehow put everybody on the same level. I have to learn to find the last point also of my phrases.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Maybe back to the chat questions. Sorry for the delay. This one appeared a few minutes ago from Harshika to Alejandro. So could you please tell me the scale of your study, the team size? Do you think it might be applicable to teams in companies?
Thank you for your presentation. Well, I got a really good idea in this session for future research. Thank you, Luisa. She thought that perhaps I should also look at the role that the coaches or the play for directing or pointing the team in a certain direction, or even in statuses or not. But to your question, I'm really interested into seeing so still I'm working at the moment on it, so the question takes me sort of out of place, but I'm really interested to see what could be done on a policy level. How can you start developing policies together with citizens and trying to anonymize them at the same time, and seeing if that empowers people to say bolder, stronger statements and so on. That I'm really interested. I'm also interested into anonymity online and researching how does that happen, why people go so crazy when they're anonymized online and they start being bolder, more aggressive, and trying to also one of the ideas for a paper is how to channel that aggression that somehow is generated when being on social media in a positive way. Like how can, my assumption is that maybe aggression is the beginning of creativity. And how can we make it, how can we channel that, or how can we dig into it before it is transformed in this verbal aggression? So those are the loose ideas. I'm not I'm not a full-time researcher, so I try to combine these things also with my work in my company and try to contextualize them. So.
Okay, thank you. And maybe a question to Binyang. So I was wondering what would change if you have different example than UAV to study. Do you have any idea? Have you tried different design case?
Sorry, you mean extend the proposed attributes to the design process of other products? Oh,
yes.
Sorry, could you?
Including the different, if you use different design case as as an example, because the agent which is proposing different features with regard to unmanned aerial vehicles might be very specific. Have you tried different case, or do you have plans to try different case?
Actually, in our current study, we focused on UAV design, this specific design process. But in my opinion, the proposed, firstly, the proposed attributes can be generalized to the development of other design research platform for the designing of other product or other design process. Secondly, regarding the design agent, the intelligent design agent we incorporate in this design research platform, in my opinion, is also both of these design agents can be generalized to other design area. For example, for the design UAV design agent, actually we used a generative design algorithm. This algorithm can be generalized to design process of other projects. And for the route planning agent, we use a linear programming algorithm. All these algorithms can be generated to other design process.
There is a question in the chat regarding. Okay, so sorry. Actually, the question was to Harshika. Okay, thank you, and maybe Harshika can answer the question regarding the agent-based model.
Yeah. So I'm working on trying to simulate how people collaborate in a team. So like an agent-based model where agents are behave like individual designers. So in order to know like how should I simulate those agents, I'm trying to see like how people behave in design teams. For example, there is an influence of other people, or how those that influence emerge, and certain attributes that I can assign to agents, and then try to mimic as much as possible how people behave in collaborative teams. This is in my opinion, this could provide a faster approach to see different scenarios and different type of collaboration artificially.
Thank you. Other questions? Okay. Actually, I had another question also to Harshika. I was thinking what might be the possible differences between online and offline influencers, real-life influencers. Do you have any insights with this regard?
Online influencers, the one which I referred to in the paper, I consider, in my mind, they were more like people in social media, Instagram, Twitter, those kind of influencers. But like in your question, you're talking online and offline. So online can also be people collaborating virtually on, let's say, on a design project. So in that case, different kind of characteristics might play a role, and we are planning to investigate like what are the difference between people when they collaborate completely online and what happens. And we are still continuing with our work on seeing how offline or face-to-face or in-person people characteristics of influencers are different from offline and from online people. So does that answer your question?
Yes. Okay, so there was a follow-up question on the previous one. Is the agent-based model going to be parameter-based? But Gaetano Cascini added that previous publication outlines such a plans in terms of agent-based. Okay, do we have other questions? Okay, actually, I'm out of questions on my side too, and in that case, maybe we can conclude the session. Thank you very much for the participation and for the many answers to many questions. This was quite interesting session, and once again, congratulations to Luis for the Reviewers Award. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone. It was really good. Thank you.